Hi friends, and welcome to a video tutorial on how to create this little heart pattern right here. This was one of the first patterns I learned back in the day when I started crocheting earlier this year. This is the first one I kind of adapted for myself. So I thought I would show you how to do that today, and then how I turn them into keychains that my students have sort of been obsessed with these days. So for this one, you're going to need whatever color of yarn you'd like. I've picked the typical medium weight number 4 here in hot pink, and you're going to need a needle that fits whatever yarn you have. So this one I made with a 3.5, and for today's video I'm going to be using the 4 with the pink. You're also going to need a stitch marker if you want to make your life easier, and it is optional but highly recommended. And you'll also need a needle to thread in your ends at the end, and I'll show you a few optional things that you can also use once we finish it off. So to get started, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to take the ends, and I'm first going to make a magic circle. If you don't know how to make magic circles, they were my nemesis when I first began, and now I find them really easy to work with and very helpful. You could also do a 2-chain at the very beginning and then crochet all of your stitches into the second chain from the hook if you want. The downfall with that one is you can't tighten the center quite as nicely. And then I'm going to do 6 single stitches into that magic circle. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. One thing I've learned with a magic circle and my stitches in general is to not keep the stitches super tight, because if you do, you're gonna have a really hard time working your needle back into them. So I'm going to tighten this magic circle up here, and then I'm going to go back into the first stitch I have in my magic circle, and I'm going to stitch 2 into that. So we call this the increase. 1, 2. Now at this point, if you're not a good counter or things are loud and noisy around you, you may want to go ahead and stitch your first, or put your stitch marker on the first stitch that you did. So you did 2 for this round. Just keep going around the rest of those 6 loops, so 5 remaining, and we're going to do 2 stitches into each one. So you should end up with 12 by the end. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and more, 12. So just go around and check that you do have 12 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I am good. I should note that we are making the top of the hearts right now. We're making those humps. So we're going to make one, and then we're going to fasten it off and cut the yarn, and then we're going to make another one and not fasten it off. We're going to be attaching the 2 together. Okay, so I'm going to continue on. At this point we have our 12 stitches. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do stitch increase. So we're going to do 1 single stitch into the next one, and then we're going to increase in the second stitch. Just like that. And if you want to go ahead and put your stitch marker on the first one, go ahead, just so that you can see where your round starts. For this one, we're going to end up with 18 by the time we come around. So we're going to keep going with that pattern of stitch increase, stitch increase. So 3, this is 4, whoops, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There we go. So we're at the end of our 3rd round. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So this is really the size we're going to stay at, is 18. If you wanted a bigger heart, you can continue to increase around. If you wanted a smaller heart, you could have stopped at 12. So we're at 18. For the next 2 rounds, we're going to do 18 stitches around. So we're not going to be doing any sort of increasing, just one single stitch in each stitch. So 1, 2, and when you're not doing any sort of increasing, it is a lot easier to lose your stitch count. So highly recommend putting that marker on there, and that way you don't really have to count. You just have to go around until you get there. So now at this point, because I haven't done any sort of increasing, you're starting to see things take shape. You can see it kind of roll up like that, or if I push it the other way, which is the right way, you can see it starting to roll down. And this is what we want for anything that kind of has that circular shape, is once you hit the size you want to then stay at that remaining size without increasing or decreasing, and you'll start to go down. So we're going to do one more of those just to really seal in that shape of the top. You could stop here if you didn't want like such a thick hump, but I'm going to do one more just to be consistent with the pattern that we've created today. So I'm going to get my stitch marker back in there so I don't lose my count. And we're going to do row 5, where we do just one more row around of 18 single stitches. I just finished working on a blanket where I was doing double crochets through the whole thing, so my brain is still very much on double crocheting. I'm not a crazy fast crocheter yet, so just hang tight if you are. If you're not, welcome. Thank you for joining me as we get there. All right, we are on the last stitch of row 5. So now at this point we have the size of hump we want. We're going to go ahead and fasten off. I've seen a few people do this different ways. Some will slip stitch into the next stitch. Some can just tie off right here. I don't know that it really matters. I've just kind of taken to slip stitching into the final stitch, pulling through. Now you're going to want to leave a little bit of a tail here so that you can use this to sew any holes that are right up in the middle here, okay? Cut that and pull your main one through, and now you have your first little hump. So we're going to go ahead and make one more of these, and then I'll show you how to attach them together. So remember, when we make our second one, you're not going to cut it. All right, so at this point, I've done my second one here, and I have not slip stitched or fastened off in any way. I still have my yarn attached. So at this point, what we want to do is we want to take our first one that we made, and we're going to slip stitch into, really you can go into any one you want, but I'm going to be going into this first hook right here, and we're going to take our long thread, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through both of them. So now we've joined the two together. I've seen this done in a bunch of different ways. This is really the easiest one. Yeah, so from here, what we're going to do is we're now just going to stitch around the entire thing. So because there's 18 on here and 18 on here, you should end up with 36 around if you've done it right. Like me, when I first did this, I had to go back and redo it a bunch of times because I didn't end up with the right amount. So just single stitching into each one so that you have 36 at the end. Now I highly recommend doing a stitch marker here so that you know where your first stitch was and you know if you've done too many. Also, just counting as you go is helpful. And remember that slip stitch we did is really not a stitch. So that can sometimes, if you count that as a stitch when you're going around, it can end up giving you 37 and 30 instead of 36. So we've done 2 so far. I'm going to keep going around. So I've done 18 single stitches on this first hump, and we're now going to start moving our way into the second one. I'm going to join it back up. I'm a little loose there, but don't worry if there's a little hole in the middle. Remember, we left a long yarn tail so we could thread them and sew it back up. Alright, so at this point I've come to the end here. I sort of have my 2 little humps. You can see that there's a hole in there, and that's okay. We're going to sew that up with this tail later down the line once we have a bit better of a shape going on here. So we've now completed row 6, and we have our one piece now. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to start to decrease and make the shape smaller. So I've done this one a little bit differently. What I've done is I've sort of focused my decreases on the edge here, and what that results in is a little bit more of a flatter heart. If you wanted to have a more rounded shape, sort of like this one, which is sort of the standard heart shape that I've seen, you just wouldn't focus your decreases on the sides. You would do a stitch decrease pattern all the way around, so it's more circular shape. So we're gonna do 7 single stitches, and then I'm gonna decrease twice. Okay, so go ahead and do your 7 single stitches, and I will see you back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm also gonna add a stitch marker, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that I don't lose my spot. I'm gonna come around. 5, 6, and 7. Now at this point we're going to do the invisible decrease. So what I want to do is I want to take these 2 stitches and turn them into one. So I'm going to go into the front loop only of the first one, then I'm going to go into the front loop of the second one, yarn over and pull through both, yarn over and pull through. So essentially I've done a single stitch, but I've used the front loops of the 2 side-by-side stitches. So I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to go in the front loop of 1, front loop of 2, yarn over and pull through, and finish my single stitch. So I've done my 2 decreases on the side of the heart. Now I'm going to do 7 more single stitches. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. And that pretty much covers the first half of the heart. If you've done the math right and you've started in the right spot, it should bring you to the center, so that you can go around and do it one more time on this side of the heart. If you're kind of way over here when you finish that, or way over here when you finish that, you've probably done the math wrong, and your heart is going to be a little funky shaped. All right, so we're gonna do that again, where we do 7 single stitches, 2 decreases, and 7 single stitches. So I'm gonna go ahead and 1, 2. And at this point, again, you can see I'm kind of right where the edge of the hump should be. So I'm in the right spot. I'm gonna do front loop of the next 2 again, and pull through and complete the single stitch. Really the invisible decrease stitch, but it's like a single stitch. So we're gonna do that again one more time. Decrease. There's another way to decrease as well, where you just kind of go in both stitches, but I'm doing the invisible decrease because it hides it a little better. So I've done my 2 decreases, and I should have enough left for me to do 7 more single stitches. And there we have it. So now our heart is starting to take shape. You can see that it is very humpy heart. I think if I were to redo this pattern, I don't know, I kind of like it, but I might have taken out that extra 18 row 5 and just brought it up a little bit so it's not quite such a divot in there. But here we go. So now we've completed row 7. Now with row 8, we're gonna go around and we're gonna be doing 6 stitches and then a decrease. So 1, 2, my marker in there so I don't lose my spot. And at the end of this one, so we had 32 when we run around that row 7. At the end of row 8, we should have 28 left up. So done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we're gonna decrease just once here. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't mind the noise in the background, that's my cats getting fed. We're gonna decrease 1, oops, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Speaking of cats, you could really turn these into cat toys if you wanted to. They're kind of the right size for it. And I'll show you that option at the very end if that's something you want to do instead of a keychain. All right, we should have enough left for one more time of going around 6 and then decreasing once. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, just enough. 6 and decrease. All right. All right, so we've done our 28 stitches. If you want to just double check that you have 28, I am, because I'm not sure if I put a double stitch in that last one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. All right, I'm good. Now at this point, if you want to go ahead and sew up kind of those holes you're seeing in there, this would be a good point because you still have easy access to that. So just gonna go ahead and put that tail on. I'm gonna go ahead and just run through a couple of times just to fill up the gap. Yeah, that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just tie these guys together. That should not go anywhere down. All right, now we've got that nice heart shape. It's looking a little wonky, but there we go. So it's already starting to look like what we wanted to. Now, because I'm using a larger needle for this one than I did this one, you are gonna see that my blue heart is gonna be a little bit smaller than my pink heart. And that's just because I'm using a larger needle for this one. So if you want a really tiny heart, you wanna either adjust the size of your yarn and or use a smaller hook. Okay, so we've completed row 8 at this point. We have our 28 stitches. We're gonna go around and do 5 single stitches and then a decrease for this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a decrease. So going in those front 2 loops and then completing the stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oops. At an awkward angle here that I'm not used to being at. And then we're going to go ahead and decrease. So continue around this row with that pattern, and then we'll see you back at the stitch marker. All right, so there is the end of row 5 with our 24 stitches. Row 5, row 9, doing great here. Now we're going into row 10. We're gonna do a similar pattern where we're just slowly decreasing that single stitch count and then doing a decrease. So we did 5 before, we're gonna do 4 this next round, and you're gonna see me do 3 in the next round. I'm just gonna do it slightly different in the next one. So we're gonna go 4, whoops, doing great here. This angle is not good for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a decrease. And the goal at the end of this round is that we have 20 stitches. Alright, so I'm just completing my last decrease of this round, so I have 20 around, and I've just completed row 10. Alright, now in this next row, this is the last row we're going to do before we start stuffing, but really you could start stuffing whenever you feel comfortable and you want to. So in this next one, we're going to go back to keeping our decreases on the edges here. So that's just going to give that a little bit more of a flat look. So we're going to do 3 single stitches, 1, 2, 3, go add your stitch marker if you need it. And now I'm going to decrease twice. So that's really going to keep the shape of the edge of the heart. That leaves me with 5. And then I'm going to do 3 single stitches. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's the first time around. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do that exact same pattern. So I'm not going to do a decrease in here because I did 2 decreases over here. So I'm going to do 3 single stitches. So you're actually going to end up with 6 single stitches in a row. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to decrease twice. So there's the first and here's the second. And then I'm going to do 3 more single stitches to finish this row out. There we go. So at the end of this one, you should have 16. So let me just double check that because I didn't use my stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Perfect. So I have 16. And what that pattern did is it keeps the single stitches on the sides here and it puts the decreases here. So you're getting that kind of more sharp shape here and a flatter shape here. If you didn't want that, what you could have done is just done 3 single stitches and then a decrease and just keep that pattern instead of keeping all the single stitches here. And it'll just give you a more rounded shape if that's what you're going for. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and start stuffing. So for your stuffing, there's a couple of options you can do that are super low cost. If you have polyfill, go ahead and use it. What you can do though is actually use yarn bits. If you have a bunch of lace from all the tails you cut off. If you have a bunch of that laying around, you can shove it in there. It's going to give it a little less of a bouncy feel than this one. Won't be as cute and cuddly, but I mean, if it's a keychain, it doesn't need to be cute and cuddly, right? The other thing that I do is I had a couple pillows lying around that I hadn't used in ages, and I've just been pulling the stuffing out of those old pillows. So that's what you're going to be seeing me use here. So I'm just going to go ahead and stuff that in, filling up the humps. You want it to be pretty filled so that it doesn't lose its shape. This one here, so I filled it pretty stiff up here, but I actually forgot to fill it down here. So it's a little bit more soft and bouncier that I'm gonna try to do for this pink one as long as I remember. Go. That's better. Already it's starting to look like our heart here, which is exactly what we want. Okay, so at this point we have 2 rounds left to go. So we're going to be doing a 2-stitch decrease pattern all around here. So the goal is to get down to 12 with this one. So we're going to do a single stitch and then a decrease. And you're going to continue that pattern all the way around until you have 12 stitches left. Alright, so I am done that round with my 12 stitches. So you can see here how unfilled the bottom is, okay? Also, at this point, so I'm gonna go ahead and fill this up a little bit more with polyfill. If you're making this as a cat toy, go ahead and put some catnip in there now. Or you could have also mixed it in with your polyfill and shoved it in before. Actually, I might go ahead and do that now too. So you can see my cute little kittens play with this heart. Okay, so we have one more round to go. Just make sure it's as full as you like. And now we're gonna do single decreases all the way around, or just, sorry, invisible decreases all the way around, so that we close it up and we end up with 6 stitches left. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off. I'm gonna leave a little bit of the tail, enough that your yarn, or sorry, your needle can hook around it. Pull that through. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna close this hole now. So I'm gonna take this and put it in here. And this was like, when I first learned this skill, game changer for me, because I just kept, this looks so unfinished every time, and no one had really taught me this when I was in the first few patterns I did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the front loops of all of these stitches here. And then what you're going to do once you've done that is you're just going to pull, and it closes right up and gives you that point you want for your heart. And then you're going to go back in through the center, and you're just going to pull it through any hole you like. Pull it through like that, kind of keep your shape there. And then you're just going to either cut that off or shove it back in. And there's your cute little cat toy filled with catnip. Heart is all done. Embroidering eyes is my nemesis. It's not my favorite thing to do because I'm still very new at it. So whatever color eyes you want, you could have added safety eyes before closing this up if you wanted to. So you're gonna kind of roughly gauge, I'm gonna do it on this side, roughly gauge where you want your eyes. I think I'm gonna make mine sort of right here and here-ish, or maybe in the center. Maybe we'll go more centered. Okay, so I'm gonna do it a little more centered. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna go in and up, and you're just gonna pull it through kind of roughly where you want. And what you're gonna do is you're just gonna go backwards and forwards until it's kind of the eye shape you like. And you wanna do this a lot. That's the one thing I learned about embroidery, is don't skimp out on how many repetitions you use. His eyes are gonna be a little sideways. Might look like he's cross-eyed, but we'll go with it. All right. Just back and forth with this. You kind of want to make sure that it's hitting both sides, so kind of use your thumb to guide it. I should have gone in a different way with that one, but that's fine. Make sure it gets over to this side. Move it around if it's not looking good. And you're just gonna keep doing that until it feels like a good, clean eye. I think my biggest mistake when I started to embroider eyes is I just did a couple repetitions and it always looked a little funny. And I just learned that you need more repetitions. All right, so I think that's probably good. I could do it a few more times, but for time I'm gonna just keep moving on. I think you're gonna shove it in and head on over to where your second eye is gonna go. I think that's about right. It might be one over, but we're gonna go there. And then we're gonna do the same thing. All right, so there is kind of the start to my eyes. What I'm gonna do now is bring it, I'm actually gonna leave this over here for a sec. And because my mouth is gonna be black, I'm gonna use this same thread for it, but you could also cut the thread and use a separate black thread for the mouth. But I'm just gonna try to be efficient here. All right, so because I'm using the same one, I'm gonna go back right in through that bottom hole here with this. And I want my mouth to be kind of roughly right around here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come out here. probably could have had a shorter yarn. And we're gonna go essentially the length of your mouth you want. You wanna go in that whole, no, that's a good one right there. All right, and then what we're gonna do is roughly the middle, we wanna bring our needle out and not pull this line too tight because we have to go up, around, and back down. So you can see that kind of little smile taking place. And you want to make sure that this yarn here goes up and around it. And then I'm going to bring it back out here. We're going to want to knot that. So we're pulling that nice and tight. It's a little off-centered, but maybe he's got a crooked smile, I'm not sure. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and tie this. Just gonna do a knot and then we're gonna hide it inside. Just gonna cut that a little shorter. I don't really love this black thread I'm using. Like Grandma had it hidden in her basement. She gave me a bunch of this embroidery thread and some of it was the really good stuff. Some of it was a little bit cheaper from like the dollar store and it kind of sheds a little bit. All right, so there is a very basic face shape. If you want to give his cheeks a little bit of a rosy pink, I'll show you how to do that. So again, I'm just using some embroidery thread. I chose this shade of pink for this. You could do any color of cheeks you wanted. You want to make it super wonky. So what we're gonna do is you can really go in anywhere you want. I just know that I want to come up right around here where his cheek would be. You can come up high if you want, you can come down low, wherever you like, as long as, I think I'm gonna try right here. This one's a little bit funkier. Oh, actually, you know what, that's probably good. Just because of the shape of the heart is coming down this way, so it's hard to get it a little bit straighter. Now, because this yarn is a little bit thicker, you could keep it to a single one if you just want a little touch of pink, or you could go in a couple times if you really want that pink to pop. So I think I'm just gonna do 3, and then I'm gonna head over to the same sort of spot underneath I2. Try to wedge it in there. And pull it through. Just make sure that that one's in the spot you want. That looks pretty good. It's looking cute. So I did 3, so I'm gonna go around 3 times here as well. And a 3rd time going in, and I'm gonna bring it back over if you have enough thread to tie it to the other end. So it's just a little bit sturdier. And then hide it just like we did with the black one. Bring that through. All right, that looks pretty good. Oops. And go ahead and tie this. Just cut off the excess. I will say my biggest struggle and need help with, which is how long to do my thread. I'm not good at judging that yet. So hopefully I'll get better at that so I have less waste, but for now it is what it is. All right, so I have roughly his face done. Okay, now to finish off your keychain, we're gonna be making the keychain with this guy right here. There's a couple things you're gonna need. Now there's multiple ways of doing this. I've just kind of found the way that's worked really well for me and I think makes it look good. There's a couple of things you can use. So I use these guys I got off Temu. You can get some basic ones from Michael's or whatever craft store you have. These were just super cheap and easy to work with and really colorful and fun. So these are called, what I believe called jump rings. I'm gonna go ahead and use maybe yellow. Now, I will say about these guys here, these specific ones, these are quite cheap. I mean, it's off Temu, so I can't really expect a lot from there. The Michaels ones are much stiffer and better for jewelry making. So yeah, just wanted to kind of make a note of that. So what I'm gonna do with this is put it wherever you kind of want your heart to hang. If you want your heart to hang straight up, you're gonna go here. If you kind of want it to have a cute little sideways, you can go up in the top. I think I might try the top because I don't normally do that. Think about it like that's how it'll hang. Okay, so now I've got that in. I'm not gonna tighten it yet. There's a couple things you can use for your actual lanyard part of it. So there's these little guys here that I got. They're kind of like mini lanyards. I really love them. They're great for attaching extra beads and fun things to it. You could also use something like these sort of beaded keychain options. These are very easy to attach. These are great for like quick, easy solutions that look cool, but I kind of want to show you what I do with beads. And this is where, so I'm actually a piano teacher and I use these as little rewards for my students. And they have become a little obsessed with them. So now you can kind of see what the keychain is going to look like. Now obviously this isn't a keychain yet because they can't attach this to anything. So I'm going to be using these I got from Michaels. They're not pretty and fun colors, but they do the job. This is the key ring we're going to need. I use the mini ones, and then whatever sort of beads you want to attach. So a lot of times my basic pattern I've used is I attach some beads here and then I hook this on. But I'm going to show you what I do with some beads. So I have grown to love these guys and these. They've been super cute to look at. I got this giant bag of wooden beads and this is going to last me forever. Absolutely love the colors in it, and this I use as like filler around the funky beads like the hearts and stars and flowers. This is where you can really have fun and be creative with whatever sort of design you want. So just remember this isn't very long, so you don't want to kind of pack it up too full. Okay, there we go. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. And then I take this guy, and this is so that the kids can attach them to whatever it is, or adults. Not judging. Just twist that around, and boom, a cute little keychain. There you go. Or you have a cute little cat toy for them to go crazy over. There is my heart pattern for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Get some use out of it. Hopefully you can enjoy my journey as I figure this whole thing out and we can learn together.